yesterday we talked about types of research, or first objective of the research, types of research, research approach, significance of research, research method versus methodology, and what are the methods, scientific methods, and then what is the research process. So if you remember that research process is one of the very important thing which we discussed and which we talked about. So where you, if you remember, we talked about, if you remember it uh, closely, that a research process comprise, it's a several step process. It's a multi-step process. Okay, right from the defining of the research. So we have to first of all define, define the problem, define the research problem, and this is the beginning of the thing to end. Okay, where we are reporting something, and then when we, so this is a multi-step process. This is a it involves several stages, like review of the previous concept, theories, literature. That is what is called as a literature survey. Okay, and uh, review of the various processes, research findings, their validity, and things like that. So it's a multi-step process. Then, based on that, formulating hypothesis. Then you have to propose the research. I mean, you have to design the research, which includes sample designing, and then you have to collect data. There is execution of the research, and then you have to analyze the data. Why to analyze the data? Because, so what it consists of? It consists of review of literature, review of literature. This is I'm taking briefly because you should be able to connect it to the thing which, and then once you review it, then you have to formulate hypothesis. You have to formulate hypothesis, and once you have hypothesis formulation, then you have to design your problem, design your research, design your research. And once you have designing of the research, then you have to collect the actual implementation, collect data. So you have to implement it, and then you have to analyze it. Analyze data, and then you have to interpret it. You have to interpret the data in the form of some report or something, like a paper or a kind of report or patent, something like this. So it is a, it is a public document, but then it consists of a feedback chart. It consists of a feedback kind of thing. Yes, tell me. So, but then it consists of a feedback loop. So because it may be possible that you once you interpret your result in the form of publication, then you have to go back. It may reject, or it may have some queries, it may have some objections, and you have to again go back, and you have to reanalyze your data, or you have to recollect your data, or you have to look you have to look for the measurement, or you have to look for this thing in a different perspective or in a different angle. Okay. Similarly, if you go from analysis of the data, this is also have a feedback loop. Also have a feedback loop. So, for example, if there is a problem persisting on this, then you have to again go back and look into the collection strategy of the data, or implementing the research design, this part. So it means that designing, right from designing to analysis of the data, this is in the feedback loop. This is in the feedback loop. So it's a process which you have to do it continuously. It's a process which you have to do it in a continuous fashion. So design research. So once your hypothesis, formulate the hypothesis, you design the research in such a fashion, you implement it, you collect the data, okay, and then you see what is the what is all response which you are getting in the form of so sometimes there may be papers which you are publishing, and which has got very inviting comment, which has got very welcoming comment, then it will be published, accepted. Then this will drive you that, okay, if this is the case, then can I analyze data in this fashion, or can I have a different perspective to formulate, design my research, and things like that. So right from the designing of the research to its publication, it is a completely feedback loop. So this is what we also discussed. And there are many aspects in this where we discussed, okay, that one of the thing which we talked about to have a success at this thing depends upon how you master this thing, how you master this review technique or a literature survey. So review of literature is very important aspect, is one of the very important thing. If you have very strong review of literature, then it will be very easy for you to put up the hypothesis. And if it is a, if you have a hypothesis which is self-explanatory, clear, okay, then research designing become very easy. Once you have clarity about research designing, then it will become too easy, collect data and analyze it, and then finally interpret it and publish it in the form. So this process is important, that we also summarize and discuss what, what type of thing. Now, as I told you that when you are uh, when you are working, dealing with formulating hypothesis, one of the important thing which you have to do is that, this formulation of hypothesis. One very important thing which I told you, in fact I told you four factors, okay, to which will help you in developing working hypothesis. What was those four factors? If you remember, these four factors are the discussions with the appropriate experts, colleagues, about the problem. So, as I told you that when you are formulating problem, you cannot go to some layman and asking, "Arey, I am going to formulate this problem. Is it so?" Relevant expert you have to discuss. You have to discuss. So relevant expert is like your guide, or your supervisor, or is the known expert in this thing, where you, if they are approachable to you, if you are approachable to them and accessible to them, then or your colleagues which are working having seniority, so you can discuss this about its origin, objective, in seeking the solution. So formulating hypothesis is one of the key project, one of the key step, okay, to do this. And how to do that? First is the discussion part. We have to keep on discussing with the relevant expert. Then, as I told you, examination of the data and records. Examination of data and records. This is one of the very important thing which is available in the particular, which may be in the form of published thing. Then the review of the identical studies. If there are some studies similar to, so review of these studies you have to do. And fourth thing, and a very important thing is that exploratory. Just a minute, someone is calling me. Hello, sir. Hello. So review, then mm exploratory personal investigations, so which involve field trial kind of thing. Means it's like a marketing. You go and so for example, if someone want to do research on, let us say, uh, education in India, then he goes to ISC to for scientific education. He goes to Tata Institute of Social Sciences for social sciences, science-based research, and things like that. For economics, he goes to IIT, IIM Ahmedabad for managemental kind of thing. So exploratory kind of thing. Similar thing, but this type of components are more in case of non-science based disciplines such as sociology, art, humanity, journalism. Hmm. But from the perspective of this scientific research, discussions, examination of the data, review of similar studies are one of the dominant or important factors, okay, which are involved in such type of things. So third is the uh, market survey based or survey based thing, but which is more for this arts and humanities, arts, journalism, humanities, that type of thing. See, this methodology is more viable or more useful. So these are the things which we talk about. Now, in this thing which we in this discussion, we have made one very important thing, one very important finding, or one very important thing is research design. Research design, very one of the very important step which we discussed. It is designing of research or research design. And the key factor in research design example, research design problem having formulated in a clear term, the research will be required to prepare a research design. Research design, my meaning is research proposal. Yeah. And then this research proposal should be conceptual, conceptually clear, okay, and then it should have a preparation strategies involved. So in other, if you talk in other words, or if you say per se in other words, we can say that function of the research design is to provide for collection of relevant evidence with optimum efforts, time and expenditure. So it should demonstrate, or it should give you a pathway that with optimum efforts, time and expenditure, you are able to achieve your goals. You're able to achieve your goal. So research purpose or research design is having four main category: exploration, description, diagnosis, and experimentation. Whereas exploration and description is more towards, as I told you, arts, journalism, that we extensively discussed. Whereas diagnosis and experimentation is more like a scientific route, or more having a scientific background. Okay. So these are the things which we, if you remember, we discussed. In this, we discussed very important concept as the determination of sample design. Determination of sample design. And what is mean by determination? So what type of sample which we talked about? Deliberate sample, random sample, systematic sample, stratified sample, hmm, quota sample, cluster sample, multi-stage sample, sequential sample. So sample is nothing but, what is meant by sample? Sample is nothing but the strength per se of your research design, the strength of your research. And then we extensively discuss how to have a deliberate sampling. In that we have also seen the convenience sampling, judgment sampling, and things like that. So that was the thing which we discussed very extensively in this thing. Then towards the end of the topic, I told you about the criteria of the good research. If you want to do a good research, then purpose of the research should be clearly defined. So it is a it is like a uh, seven factors, okay, which set up the criteria for a good research. And then if you have very clear and defined purpose, okay, then it is one of the very good criterion to have a research. Then second thing is that the procedure, okay, should be in sufficient detail so that other can replicate it. So there should be a replication sampling should be there. And then third we say, what was the third factor? Third is the designing of procedure with optimum planning, with optimum parameters and maximum yield is another thing which we discussed. Okay, and then reporting, analyzing, conclusive research. Okay, these are the things which defines your good research criteria. Okay, and that we discussed extensively. And so a good research is systematic, logical, it is empirical, and it's importantly it is replicable to all in the world. Okay, that's the thing which we extensively discussed in our first. I have just given you the glimpse of the first chapter because now we have going to go for a um, for the next chapter in our subsequent thing, which is nothing but design of sample surface. Okay, that is the fourth thing which we are going to. So it is one of the very important aspect that how you are going to offer the strength to your research design by having a proper design of sample surveys. Okay, so that's the fourth chapter which we are going to today briefly going to see and start. So that's the thing which we are going to see for this thing. So as you remember that uh, we we talked in our first chapter about the sampling. So there are two types of there are two terminologies which we used. Okay, so which constitute our inquiry. So whatever research it is, whatever research which we are doing, it's nothing but it's an inquiry research. It's an inquiry research. Yes, Saurabh Panchal, Saurabh Panchal, Saurabh, you have raised your hand. Saurabh, do you have any query? No.
No, sir. No, sir.
Because I see some raise a hand by you. So, so in inquiry field, I mean, in when you are inquiring the thing, okay. So the constitution of inquiry, constitution of inquiry comprised of two things. One is universe, and second thing, population. Okay, this is now something which we are going more towards objective. So a complete enumeration of all items in the population is known as uh, census inquiry or census survey. Okay, and it's very obvious that for any study or investigation, this census survey is rather infeasible. Why? For example, to have an idea of average per capita monthly income of the people in India, we will have to enumerate all the earning individuals in the country, and which is a very difficult task. So you cannot have a very localized kind of inquiry to be set in. So sometimes, so this type of survey is called a census survey, which is like a objective survey, which is like a very local kind of survey where you are getting one to one information. Okay, so but then it is very impossible, because then as we know, we are around let us say less than 150 crore of people, uh, and then have everyone's account or have everyone's um, income inquiry is rather very difficult task to do or to go ahead with. Okay, so such type of such type of data surveys are very difficult, and these surveys are called as census survey. They are called as census because they are why they are called census survey, because their data their data are going to become a literature or a basis to launch the research further, launch any kind of research further. But then this type of census survey are very difficult. Okay, or this such type of inquiries are very difficult because for example, if you want to know that how many trains how many trains are there is possible, but how per day or per hour how much they ran, we can only have an average value of it in the format, not every hourly which train went how much. It's very difficult. So it means that such type of survey such type of surveys are impossible to have. So but in some cases, when the because of what, because of the data population is very high, the data population is very high. So in some cases, it may one may find that in some cases where we have a finite population. Okay, uh, in that case we can impose. Okay, in that case we can impose such type of survey, but with some bracket or with some limitation or with some rider on it or with some constraint. Okay, and then when we do this, when we do such type of activity, then it is called as a sampling technique. Then it is called as a technique technique to construct a sample. Technique technique to construct the sample. This is a kind of uh, so, and this is a part of. So but then to come to this part, we need to do a survey. Okay, we need to do the survey of the sample. For example, if you want to really collect the data of the income, okay, and where we can say that, okay, we at present current thing situation which we know, for such type of answer, for such type of surveys, that we know only in bands, that income per year, something like greater than 30 lakh, uh, then less than 30 lakh, less than 20 lakh, and things like that, less than 10 lakh, less than 5 lakh, less than 1 lakh, and so on and so forth. So we have intervals, we have different intervals. to look into. And then depending upon this interval, okay, we conclude something. Okay, the poverty level is very high or poverty level is very minimized, or during this to this decade the poverty level gone down, or medium class level went up, and things like that. But if you look at the sample space, okay, if you look at the sample nature of sample, which is required to have a census survey, okay, we can only have a band structure, or we can only have a structure of band in the form of some finite interval. Such technique, such approach, okay, such approach. I have given. I have given you one example to enumerate the data. I given you one example to enumerate the data. And what was the data? I want to compile the data. What is the income of the? So instead of having individual thing, I have made it a band, and I put number of people, or I put here number. This is like 10 crores, or 100 crores, 50 crores, 20 crores, 5 crores, 1 crore, and things like that. And then I concluded something. Okay, that poverty line is, and if I sketch poverty line here or here, and I say that okay, these many percent people are below poverty line, or near to poverty line, and things like that. But this is in bands. This is in band. Such technique to cast, or to frame the problem, to compile the problem, okay, is called as a sampling technique. What it is called? Sampling technique. So it means that sample design is one of the very important aspect, okay, in any research. Why it is very important aspect? Because if you look at the flow chart over here, it is one of the key component in research design. Sample technique, sampling is one of the key component in research design. So it means that one need to, so so a sample design is a definitive plan for obtaining a sample from a given population. So you have a population of data, you have a huge information, and then you are sampling it in such a fashion that you will get a adequate, or you will get a correct and relevant information which you require. Okay, so sample design is a definite plan for obtaining a sample from a given population, and it refers to the technique or the procedure the researcher would adopt in selecting the items for the sample. And then sample design may lay down the number of items to be included in the sample, that is the size of the sample. So for example, here I may have, I cannot go in bits and pieces, so I may have, okay, I would like to see how many of them are below 50,000 rupees per year. Okay, then how many of them are, so it is in our hand. It set an interval, it is in our hand. So sample design is determined before the data are collected. So we, what we want to data, we want to collect the data, we want to do a senior survey or extensive survey on the, on 150 crore people, that is the population of our India, about their income, and then sample design will help us to determine, so appropriate sample design will determine, okay, us that how effectively you are getting data and compiling it for a meaningful result, or for a meaningful message to be translated. So sample design is determined before the data collection, and there are many sample designs from which a researcher can choose, a researcher can choose the design of the sample to convey the data or to express data. Some designs are relatively more precise and easier to apply. Some designs are complicated and they are canonical, but they are very effective in their end results. So remember one thing, that whenever you have to do a research, sample construction of sample design is one of the important aspect in this step. And then researcher must select or prepare a sample design which should be reliable and appropriate for this research study. Okay. Now, what are the main steps that involved in sample designing? We would like to see one by one. First, so steps involved in. Let us see one by one. First, objective. So the first step of sampling design is to define the objectives of survey. See, for example, 150 करोड़ लोगों का आमदनी. Why you want? What is the purpose? You have so much of time, or you want to kill time? What is the purpose? So it means that the first step of sample design is to define the objective of the survey. Why you want to do the survey? Which agency wanted to do this type of survey? What is its purpose? Where it will be used? What will be its what will be its implication? So the objective of the survey should be very clear and concrete. It should be clear and concrete in terms of its definition, okay, in its goal, whatever thing, in its description, what it is going to. Then sponsor or the researcher of the survey should confirm that the objectives are commensurate with budget, manpower, and time. Okay, because it's very important to have this. As I told you always, as I always keep on telling, in research methodology, without money, without manpower, without time, it's a useless thing to do. Why? Because if you don't have these skills attached to your research, then it has no meaning, and then you don't know what are the end results which you are going to get. Why? Because without budget, you cannot run the show. Without manpower, you cannot implement the ideas. Without time, or without having a time bar, you cannot achieve your results. So money, manpower, and time should be precisely defined and should be available for the survey. For example, I want in 2025 election or in 2024 election, I want to know objectively about the condition of poverty in India for all 150 crore population. I want to know it objectively. Then I have to start. So I have now only 2-3 years left. If I really want to target 2024, or 2 years left objectively. Okay. Then am I able to do it? How much manpower I have to deploy? It will be deployed in which fashion? What will be the management structure of it? Who will be heading? The head will have how many subheads? The subheads will have how many subordinates? Or subordinate. Then subordinate will have how many volunteers? Volunteer will have how many groundmen? All this management structure should be there, should be known, and should be precisely defined. Then every person or every category has its own charter defined, that who will be running on the ground collecting the information, who will be compiling the information, who will be getting jotting down the data, who will be compiling the data, and things like so that it's so first of all time, second is the manpower, and third is how we are going to feed money to them. Okay, why, how this staff will be given money, in which format, which rules allow that, what is it based on the daily wages basis, it will be, or is it based on some employment kind of thing, with a regular pay structure. So all this becomes a part of the objective of defining the survey, because this will be a cumbersome job, involved multi steps, involved huge time, involved huge manpower, and involvement of lot of finance financial support. So that's why these things should have a better clarification before. So this is the first step for sample design to design the objective, and objective in terms of its clarity, and sponsors in terms of its money, manpower, and time. Second thing is the population, that how much and what on what scale you are looking population. So in order to meet the objective of the survey, okay, what should be the population? So this question should be answered in the second step. So the population should be clearly defined. At what magnitude you are going to? Are you going to have this 150 per state, per district, per city, or per village? How you are going to go about this? So this population, so this channel should be clearly known. Third thing is the sampling units and frame. Sampling unit and frame. Sampling unit and frame. A decision has to be taken concerning a sampling unit before selecting sample. Sampling unit may be geographical, as I told you, geographical one, state, district, village, okay, or construction of units such as house, flat, okay, or it may be a social unit such as family, club, school, hmm, or it may be an individual. So what, how you are going to span this, or it may be individual. So the researcher will have to decide one or more of such units that he has to select for his study. Then the list of sampling units is called as a frame or sample frame. Then sampling frame contains the names of all items of the universe in case of the finite universe only. Okay, so these are the things which we need to keep in our mind when we'll be framing and we'll be designing the sample. Then next thing is the size of the sample. Is that? So this refers to the number of items to be selected from the universe to constitute a sample. And so this is a major problem for the researcher, because the size of the sample should neither be excessively large nor excessively small. Okay, it should be optimum. It should be optimum. So optimum sampling, optimum size will have a greater impact on your on your sample designing, or on your designing of the proposal itself. Okay. Then parameters of interest, which is very important. Parameters of interest. So all types of, so what are the parameters? Parameters are nothing but the statistical constants of the data points or population is called as the parameters. And population means the population of proportion. It may be population of data, it may be population of all sorts of information. Okay, the all proportionality constants are nothing but the parameter, but these parameters are very interesting, because see, for example, in our data survey, these parameters are coming in the form of some numbers. Gross salary per annum, it may come from it. So these numbers may have, so this is first parameters, like for example in our survey of income of 150 crore population, first parameter which we are looking in this data is the gross salary. Second parameter in this which we will be looking is the type of job. Type of job. So whether it is government job or it is a private job. If it is a government job, then which class? Class 1 officer, class 2, 3, 4. If it is private job, what type of structure? Whether it is a executive, or whether it is a group manager, group director, program director, managing director, things like that. So type of so these parameters are very important. They will govern this. Then third thing, which is very important, is the not third. Next thing, which is very important, is the data collection. Data collection. How you are going to collect? No, because more and more precise in your parameter, more and more precise in your sample unit and frame, more and more precise in your population, more and more precise in your objective. Your data collection is more and more relevant. Data collection is more and more relevant. Next important thing which comes is the organization. So how you are going to organize this? What are all things which you are going to highlight? Okay, what message it will carry? This message will be useful to what? Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Education. Okay, so and things like that. Then the output of your pilot survey. Output of your pilot survey. And then last thing, which is very important, is the budgetary. And you have to propose budget also, and you have to present budget also towards the end. आपने कितना खर्चा किया, आपने कितना ये किया, कितना यूटिलाइज किया और कितना आपने सेव किया. All these are the important thing in designing the samples. So these are the things which we discuss now. Next time, okay, we will be discussing about the sampling. We will be discussing about the errors in the sampling. What type of errors happen in sampling? Okay, and what will happen if we don't do sampling at all? Also, non-sampling, okay, will lead to what? Okay, these things we will continue in next time, and we'll discuss in the next class. Okay, so with this thing we'll stop for today, and tomorrow we will continue with the errors in the sampling. Okay, कोई शक, कोई सवाल? Sarang, Ipsita, Arpit, Asgar. Okay, so if there are no further questions, we'll stop for today and we'll continue next time.